And I'm back! This time finishing out the top 10 of 2020 with my number 5 through 1 games. Last video I put out, I discussed how some of the entries on my list were not particularly strong compared to previous years. I can certainly say that the next 5 games that I talk about are incredibly strong, and some have even made their way onto my top 50 games of all time. For this reason, I'm going to talk about each game in a bit more detail than the previous video, and as such, this one will be a bit lengthier than the last. While I understand that not all of these games are for everyone, I strongly urge people to check out any games that may pique their interest on this list. Without further ado, here is Burke's top 5 games of 2020.
5.
I really enjoyed Hades, but maybe not to the extreme that I have seen with some people. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic blood-pumping, quick reflexes game with a plethora of backstory and characterization to explore. Hades is a roguelite game about trying to escape through the 4 levels of Hades and uncover the mystery about your past and backstories of each god that you come into contact with along the way. At first this seems daunting as you may not even complete the first level, but the game really drives home the feeling of progression with the Mirror of Night system, which allows you to use Darkness, a reward gained from clearing rooms during a run, to upgrade certain attributes of Zagreus to help you progress further and further in your next run, and so on and so forth. The game also features 6 weapons that all have distinct attack styles and specials from one another, and eventually allows you to invest in skill trees to improve your weapon to the way you would like it. The roguelite aspect comes into play while trying to escape Hades. After clearing a room, you'll be given a choice between 1 and 3 options for the next room. The reward for this room will be displayed above the door and will also dictate if you will be fighting a mini-boss or just a regular boss. Gods come into play with the boon system, where each god gives you one choice out of 3 options among many of their countless blessings that they may bestow upon you. These don't change gameplay style too much, but definitely enhance how you want to play and what synergies you may strive for in the future. Eventually, you may even unlock combined boons in which 2 blessings play off of one another. Daedalus's hammer, on the other hand, drastically changes each weapon's gameplay. This pickup allows you an incredible change to your attack, special, or a passive ability. One example of this is that the special for the spear, which throws out the spear and calls it back to you, can be completely replaced with a new special called Exploding Launcher, which shoots out a missile that explodes in an area of effect. Due to all of these mechanics, each run feels distinctly different in that you will most likely not achieve the same boons, upgrades, and rooms too often. Towards the end of my gameplay, I tended to gravitate towards the same weapons over and over again out of comfort, and also the fact that I invested so many resources into them. I believe this was the fatal flaw that did me in, as over time I felt like the game was getting very samey, especially since the 4 bosses are generally the same between each run. Given a little bit of time away from it, I guarantee I will gravitate back towards this game and explore it some more. What I really needed this year was a relaxing game that I can continuously grind in while I focus on other tasks, and that's exactly what Spiritfarer provided for me. This game is incredibly easy to pick up and is very accessible even for people who do not play video games. Stella has been named as the new Spiritfarer and must travel the sea collecting spirits and helping them fulfill their last request before they may pass over through the Ever Door. Most of the game will be spent sailing through the seas, exploring islands, and collecting resources in order to build new buildings and upgrade your ship. This allows you to reach new areas and acquire new resources, and the process repeats over on itself. Further in the game, certain resources need to be processed through particular buildings via mini-games in order to get advanced materials. All of these tasks are enhanced by the incredible sprite animations, to the point where sometimes I just move around to see how beautifully the sprite movement is animated. Overall, the progression system feels very rewarding, albeit a bit linear at times. You will watch as you start with a small ship with no buildings and over time amass enough currency and resources to create an absolute monster of a boat for your guests. The game has a lot to offer but allows you to explore and expand at your own pace. Nothing is pushing you forward except your own desire to progress. I was able to experience the game enough by playing when I reached one of the many islands and used the sailing time in between to do whatever I had to do with my personal day. This was further enhanced by the fact that I had played the Switch version so I could set it down when I started sailing. I did happen to notice some areas where the FPS took a hit on the Switch version, but overall I think the portability factor made up for it. The focus of this game truly is on the stories and experiences of each spirit as they prepare themselves to pass on to the other side of the Evergate. Every spirit has an interesting personality and backstory, and each goes through a unique character arc that involves you performing tasks for them across the open waters. You want to make sure each spirit is well fed with their favorite food and has furniture and surroundings that they enjoy, as a happy spirit will supply you with some great passives and free supplies from time to time. I enjoyed the stories of almost every single character, but there are certainly some that stand out from the rest. My only complaint about the game is that some of the backstory is relegated to other form of media for whatever reason. This makes some story beats, such as the ending, feel really ambiguous until you either read the separate art book or look them up online. Spiritfarer is a bittersweet game about meetings and farewells and the journeys in between, and is definitely a game I can recommend to most people, including those new to video games.
Three.
Monster Train is a roguelike deck builder all about summoning monsters to fight off the forces of heaven who want to completely wipe out hell by destroying the last piece of its pyre. Each run consists of 8 battle encounters with diverging paths between each one. These paths include shops and events, and the whole run's worth of path can be seen from the very start, so you can plan accordingly. While this seems simple at first, the complexity comes into play with its battle system. The train is the battleground, and enemies generally flood in from the first floor and ascend all the way to the top to try and take a swing at your pyre piece. You, of course, want to stop this by placing enemy units in their way to prevent them from progressing. Here's the catch though. Enemies get to attack first, and all units will attack the first enemy in the line. In this way, placement plays a key role in this game, both which floor you place units on, as well as where you place them on each floor. On top of unit cards, there are also spell cards that you can use to help swing the tide in your favor, and artifacts which can provide some crazy passives to your train. These include effects such as target damage to enemies, buffs to units, or crazy nonsensical effects such as changing the cost of all your cards to a random cost each turn. Each run starts the same. You decide which primary and secondary clan you would like to use, or just go for the random option. This choice affects which cards and artifacts you will see during your run, as well as which champion you will start out with. As of now, there are 10 champions, all of which are drastically different from one another, and each generally focuses around a few particular mechanics. Champions act as your huge power unit, and each one has 3 upgrade paths they can choose from after each boss encounter, which can be mixed and matched to diversify themselves even more. Each clan has about 30 to 40 unique cards, and each card can be upgraded a number of times to fit whatever role you need. Beef up those tanks, make those glass cannons hurt more, or make spells cost absolutely nothing. The potential for combos is so vast, and it's up to you to create a deck that works well together. While combat generally consists of minions fighting minions, I have had runs where I only had a handful of units and most of my damage revolved around playing tens of spells at a time. I'm constantly blindsided by cards that combo together in a way that I never would have thought of until my runs forced me to try and make them work together. The greatest aspect about this game is just how many different options and choices you have, in-game as well as how to play. Want a challenge? Turn up the Covenant rank and get ready to get crushed by those additional rules. Want a goofy experience? Turn on Mutatus for some absolutely wacky passives. There's also a multitude of multiplayer games and a weekly quest to complete. Monster Train provides so many options that it creates near endless possibilities in how you play and a near endless amount of fun to experience.
2.
The long-awaited sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest has arrived at last, and it's learned a lot from its predecessors as well as from other Metroidvanias that have come out since. The original Ori can be described as a platformer with Metroidvania elements. This game forgoes that idea and makes the platforming a bit more accessible and adds more combat-related elements to fall more in line with other Metroidvania games. The first game featured a light ball that follows you around and fires projectiles at common enemies, and almost no bosses are present. Will-o'-the-Wisp presents the player with a multitude of different abilities and weapons, and an easy combo for each melee weapon. The game also utilizes more combat-related bosses. While many of them aren't shining examples of how modern boss battles should be done, they at least get the job done, and a few towards the end become actually quite interesting and challenging. Similar to Ori and the Blind Forest, Will of the Wisps absolutely excels in its presentation, platforming abilities, and level design. Voice acting in this game is reminiscent of Nintendo 64 era Rare games, and the scenery is absolutely stunning. Sometimes I just sit there with my controller set aside in complete awe of the animations and backgrounds. To further amplify the atmosphere, the music in this game is gorgeous and complements each area extremely well. As for platforming abilities, this game provides you with some of the best platforming abilities ever conceived, and it does so in the first hour. The ability to dash mid-air, double jump, sling yourself off of grapple points, and bounce yourself off of projectiles and enemies means that you are cruising through each area of the map at a very brisk pace. Each ability moves so fluidly into one another and makes mobility so incredibly enjoyable. To complement this idea of fast-paced movement, spirit trials can be found in each section of the map, and these allow Ori to race against a ghost spirit, usually for the prize of currency. While the reward is fine, it's really the challenge and the fun of these trials that draws me to them. Will of the Wisps can certainly be a challenging game, but does so in a way that is very accessible to a multitude of players. Checkpoints are very abundant and don't put you much further back than the start of the quarter you are in. Earlier this year, I had played Hollow Knight, and while I can say I died more times in Ori than Hollow Knight, in the former, most of the deaths were just shrugged off and my momentum was quickly built back up, as opposed to the latter game, due to the way that they present their challenges and checkpoints. While Will of the Wisps may not seem like a story-heavy game, some of the cutscenes really left a big impact on me, and I believe they managed the story in a way that it's not too intrusive, but emotional enough to really stick with you. Overall, I can't recommend this game enough to people. Game Pass is only $10 a month, $1 a month for your first 3 months, and if you have access to a decent PC or Xbox, I'm sure you'll find some enjoyment out of this game.
One.
Doom Eternal is a jarring step to take from Doom 2016 in many ways. Atmosphere is completely different, and enemies and sound design are way more cartoonish compared to its prequel. At first, these qualities really put me off about Doom Eternal. It felt like the developers were treating this game as a joke as opposed to the serious way they had treated Doom 2016. I very quickly realized the error of my ways. Doom shouldn't be a super serious game. It should be a ham-fisted game about a super jack guy ripping demons in half with his bare hands, and I think that's where this game succeeds compared to some of its predecessors. It's just not afraid to make fun of itself at all. Aside from the story and presentation, Doom Eternal has phenomenal gameplay. Every weapon has its use and ammo is pretty scarce, so you have to have a tactic for each enemy you come up against. The addition of the dash and the ability to climb walls and swing from poles really enhances combat areas. These new abilities also help to cut back on backtracking time and allow for a bit more interesting level design for exploration areas. The game boasts a ton of collectibles, such as toys, music CDs, and cheat codes, so achievement hunters will be scouring these areas for some time. Kill rooms will be where most of the game is spent, and between the movement and weapon mechanics, these areas are amazingly fun, which breaks away from the negative reception that most games can get for having too many kill rooms. Time to kill in this game is quick, but time for enemies to kill you is even quicker. Most of these areas will consist of you running between demons, looking for the perfect opportunity to take advantage of an out-of-place enemy, or go in for the glory kill once you have the chance to do so. Some of the best moments in this game are when you look down at your health, see you are getting your ass absolutely handed to you, and then you see the flickering blue and orange light of an enemy ready to be glory killed, performing that animation, gaining all your health back, and turning the fight around. And honestly, it's not something that happens rarely in this game. This game can be quite tough, and some enemies seem straight up unfair, but the game knows you have the tools and the skills to conquer anything it throws at you.
Oh no. Oh, absolutely no!
This game really sends you on a power trip that makes you feel like a complete badass, whether that be through demon-slaying battle arenas or some stellar over-the-top cutscenes. The way average humans interact with the Doomslayer in this game is really funny and honestly makes you feel like a legend. I only have a few minor gripes about the game. Sometimes enemies die too quickly to be glory killed, or don't display the opportunity to be glory killed without a particular weapon being used against them. This is most annoying when you really need that extra health, but either under or overshoot the chance to get the glory kill. The other issue I can think of is the weapon upgrade system. Some upgrades are significantly better than others, and overall, upgrading requires a ton of investment, as you need to use weapon points, which are gained through battle arenas in the campaign mode, as well as complete a final upgrade objective to unlock new abilities for each upgrade type for each weapon. This matters significantly less on easier difficulties, but when I started on Ultraviolet and chose to upgrade the micro missile ability of the heavy rifle as my first major upgrade, I felt incredibly weak through most of the beginning and middle of the game, as the weapon doesn't really shine until late game. Doom Eternal most certainly isn't for everyone, as the gore and difficulty can definitely put some people off, but I implore people to check it out if they are fans of the first-person shooter genre. As someone who doesn't like Ultraviolet video games and had watched gameplay of Doom Eternal prior to playing it, I was absolutely floored by how much fun it is once you get in control of the Doomslayer. Well, there you have it, my top 10 games of 2020. If you'd like to leave a comment about this list, definitely feel free to do so in the comment section below, and I'll take a look at it when I can. As I said before, I had a lot of fun doing this video, and I will definitely do it next year. And honestly, I might do a few videos between now and then just to get a little bit more experience with video editing. I don't have any ideas set in stone right now, but I'm sure I can come up with some ideas at some point during this year. Other than that, I'll always be streaming with the Sidebits crew over at twitch.tv/sidebits, and we'll always be putting gameplay from our streams up on this YouTube channel. We are hoping to finish the Pokemon randomizer soon, and we've had a lot of fun doing that, so I definitely would suggest checking it out if you get a chance. Anyways, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a great 2021, full of many great video games.